So I have an important update for you all in the Duncan v. Bonta California magazine ban case. So let's talk about what is happening. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think that magazine bans are clearly unconstitutional, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank one of the main supporters of this channel, which is 1st Phorm. A lot of you guys know that I've been on a weight loss journey. I lost about 50 plus pounds last year, and I'm continuing to work on myself, get healthier. And one of the companies I'm using to do that is 1st Phorm. I love their supplements, their protein's amazing. And one of the things they're offering to you guys is if you sign up using the links down below, they will give you 30 days of a free trial of their new health app. It helps you along with your journey. And again, that's for everybody that's signing up for 1st Phorm for the first time. So again, check them out using the links down below. And thank you to 1st Phorm for supporting this two-way content. As I mentioned in the intro, I have some updates for you on the California magazine ban case, Duncan v. Bonta. This is a case a lot of you guys have asked me about. It's a case we've covered for a long time on this channel, and we need to talk about what is now happening. You may recall that recently, the 9th Circuit en banc panel decided to just fudge some of their rules and take review of the magazine ban case immediately as a comeback case. That was kind of an unprecedented move by the 9th Circuit and really showed that the 9th Circuit is still very dedicated to violating Second Amendment rights and also just outright defying what the Supreme Court said in Bruen. This has now set the stage for an important hearing and decision by the 9th Circuit en banc panel. And this magazine ban case is now set to be heard and argued once again in front of the 9th Circuit en banc panel in just 2 weeks. Now, for those not aware, Duncan v. Bonta involves the California possession and purchase ban on so-called large capacity magazines, essentially any magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. This law was challenged, and a district court judge, Judge Roger T. Benitez, issued a ruling and found that the law was a violation of the Second Amendment. This led to what is called Freedom Week in the state of California, which a lot of people are aware of and took part in. After that decision, the state of California, when they lost originally, they decided to appeal that decision up to the 9th Circuit. Now, a 3-judge panel in the 9th Circuit reviewed that decision of Judge Benitez, and ultimately they agreed with Judge Benitez. They sided with Judge Benitez and agreed that this law is unconstitutional. But of course, the 9th Circuit didn't like that still. California didn't like that, so they decided to then appeal up to the 9th Circuit en banc panel. In the 9th Circuit, an en banc panel is 11 judges, the chief judge, plus 10 randomly selected judges that rotate, are randomly selected. And so originally in this case, it went in front of 11 judges. The en banc panel in the 9th Circuit reviewed the case and ultimately sided with the state of California. They used something known as the interest balancing approach, which prior was used heavily in the 9th Circuit to ultimately uphold what California did with their magazine ban. But that decision, of course, was then appealed and a writ of cert was filed to the United States Supreme Court. Now, after the Supreme Court ruled in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, the Supreme Court granted, vacated, and remanded, also known as GVR'd, the Duncan case back down to the 9th Circuit for them to re-review and rule once again in this case in light of that Bruen decision. Now, at that time, the 9th Circuit could have reevaluated this case, could have redecided it, but at that time, they wanted absolutely nothing to do with this case, so they sent it back down to Judge Benitez. Judge Benitez re-reviewed the case in light of Bruen, and then on the Attorney General Rob Bonta's birthday, Judge Benitez released a new decision in Duncan, and ultimately he ruled once again that California's magazine ban is still a violation of the Second Amendment. He just doubled up, reused, the Bruen decision, a lot of his prior language, and then said, hey, I said this before, it was unconstitutional then, and it's even more unconstitutional now. Now, originally, he had a 10-day stay on his own order from going into effect, and that essentially gave California some time to appeal up to the 9th Circuit. But then something unprecedented happened. We received an order from the 9th Circuit en banc panel, the same 11 judges that reviewed the Duncan case prior, and they notified everybody that they were going to take review of the emergency stay, which was filed to a 3-judge panel. They were going to take that away from that 3-judge panel, from the motions panel, and ultimately they were also going to take review of this case immediately as a comeback case. Then the 9th Circuit en banc panel issued and granted the emergency stay and ultimately prevented the Judge Benitez order from going in place. In that decision, the 9th Circuit en banc panel argued that they believed that the plaintiffs were not likely to succeed on their merits, that they were not going to win their arguments that the magazine ban does in fact violate the Second Amendment. So there they signaled that they were going to side with the state of California, ultimately on review. Then in those same orders, we received some important dissents from some of the judges that are also going to sit on this en banc panel, Judges Van Dyke and Bumate. Essentially, they called out the other 9th Circuit judges for breaking their own rules with essentially the express intent of protecting California's magazine ban. Judge Van Dyke in that dissent stated that, how are we to uphold the rule of law and reassure the public we are doing so when we disregard our own rules and make questionable decisions like this behind closed doors. The story of the Second Amendment in this circuit has been a consistent tale of our court versus the Supreme Court and the Constitution. That tale continues today, and we will continue as long as a number of my colleagues retain the discretion to twist the law and procedures to reach their desired conclusion. As uncomfortable as it is to keep pointing that out, it is important that the public keeps being reminded of that fact. So really, that dissent from Judge Van Dyke was a striking revelation. You had one judge in the Ninth Circuit, who's on this panel that's going to hear this Duncan case, essentially calling out his colleagues, saying that the original review by the Ninth Circuit en banc panel in the Duncan case was illegitimate then back in 2020, and even more so, it's illegitimate now. Now, briefing has taken place in this case, and recently multiple states also and their attorney generals have jumped in and have filed amicus briefs supporting California and this unconstitutional magazine ban. If you're interested, those states include Massachusetts, New Jersey, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, DC, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin. All of those states and their attorney generals support California's magazine ban, and they want the Ninth Circuit en banc panel to uphold this ban even in light of what the Supreme Court said in Bruen. Now, in the brief to the en banc panel, Michelle and Associates, who are representing the Pro 2A side, argue first that the current sitting en banc panel deciding this, and breaking some of their rules and ultimately going to rule on the merits of this case, ultimately should uphold the lower court's decision in light of what the Supreme Court said in Bruen. They say, of course, the Ninth Circuit en banc panel here should use Bruen and find that Judge Benitez was correct in his decision. They state that when California Penal Code Section 32310 was last before this en banc panel, the court upheld the state's ban on common arms under intermediate scrutiny and declared that if the Supreme Court wanted a different outcome, it would have to tell us itself that the circuit and others had fundamentally misunderstood the basic framework for assessing Second Amendment challenges. They then go on to point out in their brief that the Supreme Court responded to that call very clearly. They expressly and emphatically rejected the two-step approach. They rejected intermediate scrutiny, they rejected the tier-based scrutiny and all the scrutiny test, and said that no, the true test is text as informed by relevant history and tradition. That is the proper Second Amendment analysis. Then they go on to say that then for good measure, the Supreme Court vacated and remanded this panel's decision for further consideration in light of Bruen. The fate of California's ban on common arms should now be clear, and to the district court, it was. They then go on to point out and argue in their brief that this current 11-judge en banc panel should not be reviewing this case anyways, as Judge Van Dyke and Bumate revealed that essentially the Ninth Circuit en banc panel has broken a bunch of their rules and even in some ways has indicated that they're going to do everything that they can to stop any Pro 2A decision. And really all this is now coming to a head, and oral arguments have been set in this case, and they're going to take place on March 19th at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, of course. That means just in 2 weeks, California and their magazine ban case will be argued once again in front of the 11 judges in the Ninth Circuit en banc panel. This is the second time that these same judges are going to hear this case. They ruled against us prior. They took this case as a comeback case, broke some of their rules. So I personally don't have a ton of hope for this case because, of course, the Ninth Circuit's track record is not in our favor, especially these 11 judges prior ruled against us. So I don't think they're going to magically change their mind even in light of Bruen. The majority of these 11 judges on the en banc panel took this case as a comeback for a specific reason, probably to avoid any Pro 2A decision or any Pro 2A outcome. Judge Van Dyke and Judge Bumate are some of the judges on this 11-judge panel, so it's going to be interesting to see maybe some of the back and forth questions that happen. Maybe the court's going to address maybe some of their actions that they took in this case. Maybe you're going to get some comments from Judge Van Dyke and Bumate about some of the improper actions that happened, that were taken by this court. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited for these arguments. It's always interesting to see these move forward. So this, again, is a huge Second Amendment case, huge arguments that are going to happen in just 2 weeks in California on this whole issue of the magazine ban. Ultimately, this is one of those issues that I think is going to make its way back up the Supreme Court. This will be a final merits decision, and so that's significant for the Supreme Court. It's a case that was prior GVR'd by the Supreme Court, and that makes this Duncan case one of those kind of prime candidates for Supreme Court review if they want to get involved in a magazine ban case. So again, oral arguments are happening in the Ninth Circuit en banc panel on March 19th. I will try to leave a link to it when we get it. so you guys can listen. It's one of those things that you guys can listen to live. Sometimes they'll have video as well. I think the Ninth Circuit en banc panel usually will do video along with the audio, so it's always interesting to listen to those. And of course, if we get any more information, if anything else develops, I will let you guys know. So if you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of 2A news. But as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by ARM scholars, and this nation will be maintained by ARM scholars.